Hi everyone, we're back with episode 7 here at Concrete Character Sheet, a place for building D&D characters that combine the mechanics, the optimization, and the story into a rock-solid mix. This week we're going for a full caster for a change, and I've wanted to make this build ever since Monsters of the Multiverse came out. I keep saying that there are times when we just don't want to multiclass, and this will be one of them. With that in mind, let's talk Druids. I'm excited to do something a little different with a Druid background. We are not going to be your average nature lover. While I've never used this race before, this Druid is going to be a kobold, a short little dragonborn wannabe who, in our case, will actually be a cursed former dragon. As the story goes, our hero was once a mighty dragon, but was cursed by an archfey, perhaps Sabilna or Artagan, to live a humble life as a kobold, prevented from casting arcane magics or wearing medals. That part of the curse was supposed to keep our hero away from draconic magics or becoming a martial warrior, but he found a loophole in the form of druidic magic. So now he's rising in power as a druid, hopefully with a bit of that humble nature that he was supposed to be learning. I imagine role-playing this character as an outsider who looks at the customs of the PC races and the pettiness of their short lives as something to scoff at, but perhaps comes around on it. A lot of "back when I was on top" and "back when I could fly," but coming from a 3-foot tall kobold. Things like that. The lore really works for me, is what I'm saying. That said, the build is also great. As a kobold, we get a measly 3 features, but they're all strong. Dark Vision, Draconic Cry, and Kobold Legacy. Dark Vision requires no explanation, but doesn't hurt. Draconic Cry is what's left over from Pack Tactics in the previous version of the Kobold, but Pack Tactics was much more of a melee character's benefit, whereas Draconic Cry, usable at a 10-foot range, is good for everyone. It lets us give advantage to us and our allies until the start of our next turn against anyone who hurt us, no save. Usable proficiency bonus times per day. It reminds me a bit of the Zealot Barbarian's level 10 feature. We get it as a racial ability. Can't complain, not one bit. Then we get Kobold Legacy, and we'll take the Draconic Sorcery option. Let's pretend this isn't an arcane spell for our lore, if you don't mind. This allows us to fix one of the odd issues that the class will be going into and pick up a real damage cantrip that keys off of Wisdom. So yes, we're going to take Firebolt. Our stat line will be 17 Wisdom, 16 Constitution, 14 Dexterity, 10 Intelligence, 8 Charisma, and 8 Strength. I might even lower that Constitution score a little bit to raise my Intelligence, but we're certainly surly and wimpy enough to dump Charisma and Intelligence. The extra Constitution is just a nod to the fact that, as much as I love this build, we are not a Tortle, and we have not addressed the Druid's low AC problem. So unless we find Coral or Dragon Scale Half-Plate, or Magical Hide Armor, we are stuck at a 16 AC with a shield. We need the HP and the Constitution saving throw bonus. Oh well, such is the life of the squishy wizard. Druid, you know what I mean. For skills, it's appropriate for our disgraced former dragon to know Arcana, but not Nature, as well as Perception from the Druid list. I think the most sensible background is actually going to be the Far Traveler background from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, although I'd swap out the skills, as well as a second language instead of a tool proficiency. We clearly speak Draconic, but a dragon should probably know Elvish depending on our age, as well as a more obscure language like Primordial. For our class, we'll be a Druid all the way. At Druid 1, our extra cantrip helps with spell selection, so we can afford to grab Thorn Whip. And if there are no clerics around, Guidance. We then get some impressive spells like Entangle, Healing Word, Goodberry, and either Fog Cloud or a Fairy Fire spell, presumably left over from our Fey Curse. Honorable mention goes to Absorb Elements, but we won't really need it until higher levels. Remember that we can change our spell list every day, so while I'll highlight our strongest options, you'll want to mix and match based on your party's needs each day. By Druid 2, we have our subclass, which of course is the Circle of Wildfire. We'll be able to add Burning Hands and Cure Wounds to our spell list, so particularly if we aren't the only healer, we don't need to keep Healing Word prepared if we don't want to. From the subclass itself, our attempts to turn ourselves back into a dragon have only led to us creating a small dragon out of fire, which hovers around and perhaps taunts us about how we are still stuck as a kobold. The Wildfire Spirit is a fantastic pet, allowing us to attack with our bonus action as well as use the impressive Fiery Teleportation ability which provides unmatched versatility and usefulness even if it is only a 15-foot teleport. That distance can go a long way towards preventing attacks of opportunity, and the fact that you can summon the spirit with its little 2d6 explosion, then use your bonus action that turn to tell the spirit to use fiery teleportation, causes a nice little AoE that softens the blow of having to summon the pet in combat. As we go up in levels, only the pet's health increases more than marginally. However, fiery teleportation creates tactical opportunities for moving our party around the battlefield that will stay useful for the entire game. And moreover, having that positioning option to use every turn is just flat out fun, an endorsement for this subclass if ever there was one. A side note on Wildshape. Plenty has been written about it already, but suffice to say, I think it is one of the best utility options in the game, even if we need to spend it often to cast our pet. Being able to condense your whole character into a mouse, or later dig under a fence, or fly away as a bird is pretty impressive, something that wizards only wish they could do. Part of what makes this build great is having an excellent and versatile spell list akin to any wizard, adding broad utility features like Wildshape and healing into the mix. At Druid 3, we gain Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray. Here's where our build starts to show some promise. Scorching Ray is perfect to combine with Draconic Cry, distance notwithstanding. As long as we can get within 10 feet, we can run up, use Draconic Cry, cast Scorching Ray, and all rays get advantage, then we retreat. New spells also become available, like the excellent Pass Without Trace, and the Summon Beast spell, not to mention Spike Growth, Enhance Ability, Hold Person, Moonbeam, and Locate Object. Because of course a mini dragon would locate objects and not people. There are few wrong choices here, though let's not get into the healing spirit errata. Even with errata, it's a pretty efficient heal. At Druid 4, aside from being able to wild shape into burrowing creatures, we're going to be taking the Fey-touched feat. As you might have guessed, we have learned to channel the lingering effects of our curse towards our enemies, allowing us to access the Hex spell as well as Misty Step. This gives us a great little combo, though it takes a turn to set up. As we approach an enemy, hex them from 90 feet away and use Firebolt, adding the extra d6 of damage. Then, once we're nearby on the following turn, use Draconic Cry and Scorching Ray together for 3 attacks doing 3d6 damage each that all have advantage, and increasing their chance to hit and crit. This isn't some kind of game-winning combo. The fact that we can do it multiple times per day really helps, and most importantly, we didn't give up any levels of our main class to make this combo work. From a lore perspective, of course, our mini dragon is charging up his breath weapon with Draconic Cry before unleashing it, notwithstanding its Scorching Ray and not a breath weapon. There's also a nice combo we can do without having to summon our Wildfire Spirit, which, depending on your short rest schedule, may not be available every fight. At Druid 5, like any full caster, we get some excellent spells at level 5. While we should probably pack Dispel Magic, the big ones you've heard about are Call Lightning and Conjure Animals. Unfortunately for us, we don't get much control over whether we can use Call Lightning. It is, of all things, dependent on ceiling height or being outside, but it's an amazing and supremely efficient spell when we can use it, all the more so for us because we have our bonus action Wildfire Spirit to attack with simultaneously. Conjure Animals is a little trickier. Lifetimes could be spent on that one spell, but suffice it to say I will assume it's being run as written. If the GM lets you pick animals, yes, a pack of wolves or a cadre of horses or a wall of giant owls makes it easily one of the best spells in the game. But if it's as written, the GM picks the creatures, and that's what I've got to assume. For us, unless we can use Call Lightning, we're likely to use our 3rd level spell slot for upcasting Scorching Ray with our Hex combo, as Scorching Ray has some of the best scaling in the game. Though we did get the fabulous Plant Growth and Revivify spells added to our list permanently, which only strengthens our options as a broad utility caster, since so many of our staple spells, Revivify, Scorching Ray, Cure Wounds, are permanently prepared for us. At Druid 6, our Enhanced Bond comes online with 2 excellent features. Adding a d8 to our Firebolt cantrip may sound minor, but d8 damage is 4.5 on average, so we've just gone halfway to scaling our basic attacks with Warlocks and Fighters. It's not 2 attacks, but I'll take it. Yet we can also add the d8 to our 1 ray of Scorching Ray, or a use of Cure Wounds or Healing Word. This is a feature you'll basically be able to use every turn for the rest of the game. But Enhanced Bond isn't done. We can also cast spells from the position of our Wildfire Spirit. This is perhaps most useful when you combine it with Thorn Whip. As your Wildfire Spirit can fly, suddenly a 10-foot pull over a pit or a cliff gets a lot stronger. This has a lot of uses, but let's just say, outright, it's a really solid addition to our class. The only downside to Enhanced Bond is that it only works when our Wildfire Spirit is summoned. We want to have the spirit up as much as possible anyway, so this isn't much of a downside. At Druid 7, we gain one of the strongest spells in the game in the form of Polymorph. Turn your enemies into turtles or whales. Turn your allies into giant eagles or giant apes. You know the drill. We can combine Wall of Fire with our Wildfire Spirit, who is immune to fire, to then use Thorn Whip to pull enemies back into the fire, depending on the size of the room. Though you still need to be able to see the target, we're just changing the origin point of the spell. Since the wall is opaque, you need your spirit to be on the other side of the wall, and it goes after you, so it has to move in advance. It's complicated, but it should be possible to pull an enemy through the wall with Thorn Whip. Just talk to your GM. We can also cast the somewhat off-brand Watery Sphere, Stone Shape, Freedom of Movement, and our list is permanently provided with Fire Shield and Aura of Life. Neither spell is amazing, but when you absolutely need fire, cold, or necrotic resistance, you'll be thankful those spells are on your list every day. Remember that Tasha has added Divination, a very handy ritual to have and a very inexpensive way to throw in a dash of that cleric utility, as well as Summon Elemental. If you have enough gold for the component, it can be worth using, and it's certainly simpler than Conjure Minor Elementals. Also, we will not be discussing Conjure Woodland Beings. Using pixies to make the team into 4 flying T-Rexes is funny, but does not pass the table-wide eye roll test, in my view. Just talk to your GM about what you can expect from the old-style Conjure spells. At Druid 8, you gain the ability to transform into bird forms, which could be game-changing for our campaign based on the prevalence of flight. On top of that, you can put your wisdom up to 20, but you might want to wait. This build absolutely relies on Elemental Adept Fire, and not playing in a hell-centric campaign like Descent into Avernus, where almost every enemy is immune to fire. The only question is to get Elemental Adept at level 8 or level 12. My preference is to get it at level 8, since against resistant foes, double damage is better than +1 damage, though you will get more varied spell damage types in the next few levels, which helps a bit. Druid 9, meanwhile, is a fun one for us. While sure we could use Conjure Elemental to gain an unreliable pile of hit points, our kobold has been working towards this for a long time, and is going to use the spell Summon Draconic Spirit from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, because we've got a Draconic Spirit waiting to come out. Lore-wise, I'll have a lot of fun, even if it means casting Hex less often. As for other spells, I don't expect to be casting Flame Strike, a very poor man's fireball, but having Mass Cure Wounds on my list forever can help prevent a total party kill, and that's fine by me. Cone of Cold, however, does comparable damage but has an enormous radius, so thank you Tasha's for giving us a real blast spell. On the other hand, Xanathar's gives us a surprisingly good control spell in the non-concentration Transmute Rock. There will be times when we want to pull enemies into a central point, so don't forget that you have Maelstrom with its large 30-foot radius. But the biggest highlights here are Wall of Stone, Scrying, and Greater Restoration, plus the ritual form of Commune with Nature. Really, we're at a level where you can do absurd and varied things with a day of preparation, like awaken a tree, or have daylight in your pocket to fight vampires, or blight enemy crops, or inflict a gesh, or bind an extraplanar being, or control water if you'll be on a boat, or interview plants or animals, or block all incoming arrows, or give resistance to a damage type. You get the idea. Keeping an eye on this plethora of possibilities is one of the challenges of this character, compared to even the wizard or sorcerer, who don't have as many spells in their kit as we do. At Druid 10, we get the profoundly odd but useful Cauterizing Flames ability, adding a 2d10 plus wisdom modifier damage or healing reaction to little flickering candlelights on the map. The range on this is quite generous. The flames are spawned as long as the enemy dies within 30 feet of you or your Wildfire Spirit, and you can do the reaction from any range as long as you can see the target. 4 uses a day doesn't feel like a lot for a feature this complicated, but I'll take it. Heals will be easier to pull off, but you might use Thorn Whip to pull enemies into the flames. This ability doesn't scale. You only get 4, 5, or 6 per day, but I can't say no in terms of the action economy benefit of using only our reaction. As such, my verdict is, sure, why not? For Druid 11, we get a really stellar list of new spells, as well as adding the option for our summoned draconic spirit to get a third attack. Heal, and especially Hero's Feast, will change the way you prepare for and fight bosses. Find Path, Move Earth, Transport via Plants, Windwalk, and Druid Grove suddenly make you the best in class at altering your environment, preparing defenses, finding your goal, and getting your party to that goal. Bones of the Earth and Sunbeam do damage while offering great control or debuffs, and are both efficient, with Sunbeam lasting a minute and Bones of the Earth not taking concentration. It's just winner after winner. Even Investiture of Flame, Investiture of Ice, and Primordial Ward will have uses. Sometimes you just really need to be immune to an element for a short time. Plus, for an outdoor combat, casting Call Lightning at 6th level honestly isn't a bad move either, since it lasts 10 minutes and scales so well. The real downside to this level is you only get to cast one of these top-notch spells once a day. At Druid 12, we finally max out our Wisdom, giving us a higher DC, a better chance to hit, and another spell prepared each day. For Druid 13, we can continue on our little dragon's quest by taking Draconic Transformation. Not that we'll use it often, but our little kobold is absolutely going to try it out as he gets closer to his goal of becoming a dragon again. Though our best spells for this level will be Reverse Gravity and Plane Shift. Don't be too afraid to use Plane Shift offensively, as we can run up to touch an enemy, then use our Wildfire Spirit to teleport us away if the Plane Shift fails, or just cast the spell through our Wildfire Spirit in the first place because of Enhanced Bond. Regenerate is also nice to have in your back pocket. Firestorm, you'd think might be good, but it does scant more damage than just upcasting Wall of Fire, but this is instantaneous instead of ongoing. Not impressed. Wall of Fire, though, not a terrible option depending on the terrain. At Druid 14, we get Blazing Revival, which lets us pop back up with 50% hit points if we go down while the Wildfire Spirit is active and nearby. This is certainly an ability we hope doesn't come up much, but another good reason to take 16 Constitution. At this level, using averages, we'll have 115 hit points, so gaining 57 hit points back once a day is in the ballpark of the heal spell being cast on us, with no actions or resources expended on our part. I would have liked a big fiery damage finisher for our 14th level ability, but you know what? When this comes up, we'll be very glad we have it, so I'll take it. And I do appreciate that none of the later Wildfire Druid features have interrupted our action economy at all. So, Druid 15 offers a variety of capable spells. Animal shapes can turn a whole village into birds or elephants if they're willing and all standing near you, whereas Earthquake can level that same village. Antipathy Sympathy has some great control options, particularly for Sympathy, which doesn't rely on the fear effect, which many enemies might be immune to by now. And you can prepare that in advance if you know what types of enemies you'll be fighting. Never hurts to bring a Sympathy Undead item with you in case you run into a horde of zombies, let's say. Hand the item to your tank, and you're good to go. Or give it to your Draconic Spirit and have it fly the item away, as the enemies only need to be able to see it. Feeble Mind is a very all-or-nothing spell, so I can't say it's ideal. When it works against a boss who is out of legendary resistances, let's say, it's very powerful. Tsunami might have one of the largest areas of any spell in the game, 300 feet long, which pushes back 250 feet, but until you're flooding a box canyon that an army is trudging through, I'm not sure how much use this will get. Still, we can change our spells out every day, so don't rule it out. Same with Control Weather. You might get a perfect use for that spell once in a game, but it'll still be fun when it happens. Last but not least, we can give our Draconic Spirit 4 attacks, if we really want to. At Druid 16, we're taking a feat. We will definitely want Warcaster, particularly because of the spell we're about to take. Now at Druid 17, we hit the big time. We prepare 34 spells every day, and we get 9th level spells. True Resurrection can be handy, but we're mostly here for Shape Change. Foresight is excellent and a great use of a 9th level slot, but our kobold has been working towards Shape Change for the whole game. Shape Change is an incredibly complex spell, which Treant Monk has already covered expertly, so I'll actually link that here, allowing us to do a ridiculous number of odd things, including becoming a Rakshasa and plane shifting to any plane without a material component, so not just the planes the GM has given us the tuning forks for. But for our kobold, we're usually going to be spending an hour a day using shape change to become an adult red dragon, aka our former self. It won't cure our curse, though if anyone in the party can true polymorph us into an adult red dragon, that'll come close. But it's a fitting conclusion to our kobold story. Though one hopes by now our hero has learned how to be a bit less evil than your average red dragon, but we'll see. Druid 18 gives us the ability to cast some spells, including Scorching Ray and Call Lightning, while wild-shaped, though as a non-moon druid we'll mostly be using this to cast spells while we're flying around as a bird. We also get a third 5th level spell, which is not nothing, nor is the extra spell we can prepare each day. At Druid 19, we'll take Resilient Constitution for all the shape change forms that aren't already proficient. Add another 6th level slot, again hard to compete with, and an extra spell prepared. At Druid 20, we get a second 7th level slot, and our last preparation slot, as well as the famous Druid capstone of Archdruid, providing us with unlimited wild shaping. It does mean we can always have our wildfire spirit around, and that using wild shape to fly around as a giant eagle isn't as risky since we won't run out of flight, but it doesn't change a whole lot for us. Still, spend an action to gain 26 or 37 hit points by turning into a giant eagle or a brown bear is not a bad option. So that's the build. And I have to admit, this little disgruntled former dragon is high on my list of characters to play next. After playing a wizard from levels 1 to 20, I love being a caster, but wish I could have had more spells available, and druids have every spell they know every day with a great list, and we've got an extra 12 spells known on this character, counting Fey Touched, not to mention that our wildfire spirit never goes out of style. Do you have any favorite uses of the wildfire spirit's teleport, or favorite shape change forms to share? Let me know in the comments. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe if you can. And remember, when it comes to contracts, real, fictional, or fey, always read the fine print.